Hi, everyone. It's Channing Jones, and I am absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. It's quite an honor to work with educators that are in the field right now, doing the things that I want to do in a very effective manner. So I thank you in advance for all the ideas that you'll be sharing, all of the advice that you'll be giving throughout this process. So, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to discuss the pros and cons of virtual learning. There are a ton of pros as it relates to virtual learning. First, our students are going to come to class better prepared. The topic is going to be introduced well in advance of the class. This is going to reduce anxiety for some of our students. Third, I can begin to set objectives and expectations of them prior to the classroom environment. Fourth, I can provide additional learning time for my students using this tool. Some need to digest the material in smaller pieces. Some may need to pause, come back to the material, and repeat it. And so, this type of environment is going to allow for my students to do that. There'll be less time lecturing and more time actually practicing and executing. So I certainly know that I learn best in when I am doing the activity, and I suspect that my students will feel the same. And last but certainly not least, this is going to help facilitate and encourage parents to be involved. I will be teaching in DC public schools, and so I wanted to look at the school system and some of the demographics. And these numbers were staggering. In the 17-18 school year, it was identified that 77% of my students were economically disadvantaged. What that means essentially is that my students will be coming from low income households. They'll be at or below the poverty level. Many of them will be receiving reduced or free lunches on that program. And many of them will be receiving public assistance for housing, food, and healthcare. So there'll certainly be limited resources for my students. Within the context of those demographics, um, the most significant con is that my students may or may not have access to the necessary tools to be effective in a virtual learning environment. They may or may not have computers. They may or may not have smartphones. They may or may not have Wi Fi, telephone services, electricity. Some of the real basics that we take for granted, my students may not have. There may also be family responsibilities outside of the classroom. They may be caring for a younger sibling or maybe even an aging adult. And certainly, last but not least, some of their parents may not be technologically savvy. And so that actually may discourage the student from excelling or even participating in the. So, in conclusion, I do believe that the pros of virtual learning far outweigh the cons. That being said, there are some very significant challenges that I will have to navigate. And so I look forward to discussing this further with the rest of the cohort. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you on Saturday. Bye bye.